Greetings, everyone. We're back, and you know what it is. Barefoot Bruisers LP number 6. I just got this knife in last week, and I want to talk about it some and give some background on it, and especially just show it off, because Dave made miracles yet again. So, as most of you know that follow Dave, his first batch of knives were the Origin. Each one's different. He had talked about making a slightly smaller knife called the LP for left pocket, because somehow a knife this size is considered a backup for Dave. But for most of us, this would be the primary knife, and I want to talk about it some. So each of the LPs that he has made previously and is continuing to make are all unique, whether it's the blade shape, how much of a curve he's putting in here in the handle. They all have their own little eccentricities as he dials each one in. So I can only speak to this one, so this is what we're going to go over. I haven't used it a ton because I just got it, but it has been in pocket for a few days and always by my side as I've been playing with it. So, little background. I had resigned myself to getting an LP maybe next year sometime. I had gotten the Origin from Dave at Blade, Texas, and there'll be a video on that here shortly. But I figured I had one Barefoot Bruiser. Chances are I'm not going to be able to get an LP for a while. Well, fast forward a few months, Dave decided to do a lottery, basically draw a name or probably a playing card. I don't remember exactly. I think it was playing cards, but my name was drawn. And even better than that, I was lucky number 1 on getting my pick of which of the LPs I wanted. I thought about it for about a half second and knew number 6 was the one. How did I know this was the one? Well, I think it was the week before or maybe 2 weeks prior. Dave was going over some of the builds that he was going to do on the LPs. And he went through a number of them. Maybe 6 of them. I can't remember exactly, but he was working on this one, and I saw all I needed to see. Basically, my favorite blade shape. The whole knife was perfect for me, and I even wrote down plow tanto to remind myself to ask Dave for a blade like this. So when he was putting it together, and there's this underchoil here on the handle, between the blade shape, this underchoil, I had my heart set on it. So when I was number 1, I thought about it, instantly said number 6, and away we go. So in terms of working with Dave, he keeps you updated. He asks for your input on some of the smaller facets of the knife. In my case, he had asked if I wanted it chamfered or rounded on the scales, and I elected for chamfered. I like the way it feels a little bit more in hand. I think it looks better visually for most scales to be chamfered. But I had a request to make this underchoil section here rounded and the rest of it chamfered. Dave did exactly that, and it feels like a comfortable pair of shoes. When you grab this blade, the rounded edges, I really think, set off this underchoil here. And listen, I'm aware that I say choil like Shane probably says choil. So I say choil. I'm only a couple states away from Shane by upbringing and a few states away in residence. So I grew up saying choil, and I live in Texas now, so I say oil. So choil. Anyway, David asked about, I don't know that he asked about opening method, but this is what I would have wanted, which was the chameleon eye and a fuller on the back. I'm not big on reverse flicking bruisers. I just always default to the thumb. So the alternate side of the blade didn't matter to me a whole lot. So Dave generally knows what I like detent wise, but understand, for comparison's sake, I have just large to borderline extra large hands based on glove size anyway. You know, for the proctologist gloves, I use XL. I bought a pack of larges, but I can't get them on, so I guess maybe XL it is. But Dave has the hands of a Kodiak bear, so his frame of reference is a little different than the frame of reference most of us have for what constitutes a strong D10. I like snappy, I like strong, but there's levels to the game. So, like Dave mentioned on his video last night, or yesterday rather, he was a little nervous about it because he did describe this one as snappy. And when I got it, here, I'll do a quick reenactment. I open up the SOE zipper pouch, I get it out, I open the blade, it's love at first sight, instantly love it, close the blade, and then I tried to open it. And really, I just did this for a number of hours. So I did this and then did that, and this is what kept happening. I tried to reverse flick, and then that's what happened, which was nothing. And I never did really get it to fire. So Dave and I texted about it a little bit. Long story short, he suggested easing the lock bar tension a little. And two things happened at once. I was in the middle of adjusting the lock bar tension. I hadn't adjusted it a whole lot. And my son walks by, picks up the knife, and reverse flicks it wide open. And then it occurs to me, I think I'm handling it wrong. My son has a tendency of doing that, where he'll take something that's just completely stumping me, and then he does it effortlessly. Note, his fingers are 50% longer than mine, at least. So anyway, I then examined how I'm really trying to fire it, and immediately realized that while I thought my finger was off the lock bar, it had not been. So when used as intended, it fires as snappily as possible. So, and it's interesting that I'm closing it this way. I normally use the claw method, but for some reason when I'm on camera now as a big time YouTube star, I'm doing it maybe the content creator way of putting my thumb down here. Anyway, I don't have any other knives really to compare, to do a size comparison. Y'all know what it is. It's a big knife. It's a bruiser, and it's badass. At a later date, maybe when I do the origin video, I'll put some other ones next to it, like a Sabenza or Nkosi or something, just so you kind of have an idea of the size of it. So the only other knife I have, actually, is a GEC 13. So if you're familiar with the 13, then now there's your comparison. Blade is slightly longer, and the handle is slightly longer, and it's slightly thicker. So there's your size comparison. We're going to talk about the 13 here in a second, but a couple of other interesting notes on the LP. The blade shape is really what sets this knife apart. It makes the knife to me. The combination of a recurve with a big tanto in the front, you just don't see this all that often, where you have that much edge on the front, but still a very usable recurve length. It's exactly how I like to use a knife. I cut like a Neanderthal. I don't really use a saber grip very often. I don't guide my cuts very well. I still cut like I'm a child. I pick up the knife, grab it by the handle, and then cut. Or maybe choke up and cut. There's there's rarely more technique than that unless I'm in the kitchen. So for my purposes, absolutely perfect blade shape, and I couldn't be happier. One of the great ideas that Dave had, and frankly didn't consult with me on it, was the backspacer. With it being carbon fiber, you always run the risk of it throwing the weight balance off. You've got a big, reasonably thick blade and a lot of it, and it would be easy for the weight to be too far forward of the pivot. So Dave, for the backspacer, used copper, and I hope that's coming through in the video, but it matches and suits the knife just perfectly. I never would have come up with it to combine acid wash titanium with carbon fiber with a chunk of copper in the middle, but it absolutely works. We'll see if I can capture this on video, but the balance is right where at least I would want it to be, just a tiny bit behind the pivot. So it's got really good balance when you're gripping it and putting this thing to work. I guess you can see some of the little smudges on the tip from using it yesterday and last night. Probably the most fun way of using it, I was kind of mass grilling a bunch of the frozen Costco burger patties, and those things get stuck together. Normally you can kind of pry those apart. There were a few that you just couldn't pry apart, but I had this in hand, so a quick stab through it, and I think maybe that's what Dave had in mind with this blade design, because it was perfect. So anyway, just a spectacular knife. Love at first sight. I need to do a video of knives that were love at first sight, because I have less than 5 and I can think of them off the top of my head. So maybe a future video on that. One last thing on the lock side, the clip actually made me chuckle a little, because I know, if you listen closely, that drives Dave crazy. And I know that because I have his Old Dominion Knife Works Chupacabra, the 4-inch, and it's got a Zerk clip, but it's spaced off the handle just enough that it clacks a little bit. It doesn't bother me, but I know it bothers Dave. This could obviously be adjusted, but it's perfect for how I like to, I guess, like pants detent. Like the detent in my pants is perfect. The retention's just about right, or is just great. And so anyway, I'm not adjusting anything. My tinkering days with this knife are over until it just gets too dirty or something and I have to take it apart. But just stellar work. Immediately to the top of my all-time favorite knives, and that's before even really truly getting to use it. So thank you, Dave. I'm so fortunate to have gotten in on that lottery, and frankly, there's no better maker in the community to support than Satu Dave. So many great things ahead from him, I'm sure. So this 13, so these came out, I want to say late 2024. And at the time, if you think back in the GEC world, just getting a GEC felt like an accomplishment. The drops were random, or it's very small retailers with small drops, and if you weren't on deck waiting for it, you had no chance. And so at the time, if you could get a GEC, you got the GEC. So the guys in my knife club are pretty dang good with drops, and this was no exception. We were all picking up every 13 easily. If you wanted it, it was easy to get. But then it turns out the 13 was a wildly unpopular pattern. For whatever reason, you were lucky if you got close to what you paid for it, if you were just trying to pass it along. I'm not a flipper. I've never been a flipper. I've never flipped a knife. Hell, I got a Roosevelt XL on one of the earlier ones and sold it for my cost 2 days later. I'm not interested in flipping. And I do tend to think people that do are scumbags, but I digress. But I always liked the 13, and I had one that I think the maple or something rich light, it's a black and gray one, carried that for a little while. But this particular one is now in my very steady rotation. This one means a lot to me. It was a gift from our friend Tomas. He included it in a trade that we did, and I'm thoroughly grateful because it's so thoughtful. He knows I like traditionals, and I actually like single-bladed Warncliffes because I normally carry blades like this. So it's nice to have complementary blades. The one he sent me, Bacote wood, which you might be able to see here. It's beautiful wood, nice patterns, and it's just a really lightweight but usable long blade. Goes right in the pocket. it's a forever carry for me because it was from Tomas, and I also like the knife itself. So the GEC 13 Clerk, you can probably get one on the secondary pretty easily if you look. So we have our modern and our traditional, which only leaves our music section. So the music section today, this isn't going to be for everybody. If you don't like heavy metal or you don't like really heavy metal, just cut the video off. You know, like, share, subscribe. Maybe skip to the end to see if I think of something to chuckle about between now and then. But really, it's not for you. But for everybody else, let's go back in time to 1999. Slipknot releases their self-titled debut, Slipknot, and it's unlike anything the music world has really ever seen. It's a whole bunch of guys. They're all playing instruments and they're all going crazy at breakneck speed. But you also realize these guys are writing really good songs. But there's an energy that Slipknot brings that, frankly, I've never seen from a live band other than them to this date, 27 years after that. So I was a little slow on the uptake with Slipknot and started to get into them in 2001. They had not released their follow-up album yet, but we knew the follow-up record was on the way. And like most fans of Slipknot, we were a little anxious about whether it was going to be another really hard, over-the-top record or if they were going to, quote, sell out and go with a little bit more mainstream. So they released their second album, and I remember it because it was late August, and 2001, so maybe 2 weeks before 9/11, they release Iowa. And you immediately know that they went the other way. They actually went harder on the second record than they did the first. It starts out with some screaming and guttural sounds and whatnot in 515, which is, I'll spare you the whole backstory, but it's a little bit of a noisy intro and then right into People Equal Shit. And it's off to the races. And you can tell that Corey Taylor knows what they're doing because the first lines out of his mouth is "Here we go again." MFers. So he knew that was the concern, and the rest of the album goes full tilt. I am pretty sure it's the all-time greatest heavy metal album. And I know that's a wild claim. But at least in that genre, I don't even know what to call it. Is it alt metal? Ugh. I hate tags. Suffice to say, Slipknot, Iowa, if you work out, if you go to the gym, if sometimes you just need a boost, put some headphones on or get in your vehicle, crank the volume, Slipknot, Iowa, and enjoy the rest of their catalog too. The rest of their catalog is fantastic. Probably my least favorite song of theirs is the most successful of Psychosocial. I hated that song, still don't like the song. In fact, I didn't like the album at first because of that song, but I've since moderated my opinions on that. Never really totally got into their most recent record to the point I can't remember what it's called. But the Gray album wasn't always very well received. I thought it was fantastic. So anyway, opinions are like, well, I'm not even going to try to pull off the phrase. So that's it. We have a LP number 6, Barefoot Bruisers, GEC 13 Clerk, Slipknot, Iowa. Like, share, subscribe. Look, I'm doing it again. A real content creator. And that's all we have. So now we go to the Steve section of, man, no matter what combination of pants and boots I wear, these trucks are still a problem. They keep breaking. I just